Hi there. Let's spend a few minutes talking about how to get a workers' comp new business quote. What's the success formula? Well, let's start with a complete submission. As much information as you can provide is important, and it's really as simple as filling out the workers' comp Accord app. And here are a few things that you really need to watch out for because these will slow down your ability to get a competitive quote from CID Insurance. First of all, you need that VIN number. Carriers won't quote without it. And so that's one of the first things that you want to be able to get from your potential prospect. In addition, it's important to have the named insured be accurate. If it's not, the Bureau is going to kick it back and say that it doesn't match up. So named insured is super important when it comes to that. In addition, you want to have a detailed description of the business operations. What does the company do? What are all of the things that are involved in the operations of the company? The next thing to consider with your prospect is what is considered payroll. Obviously, if an employer has employees, they are going to be requiring that payroll to be reported on a workers' comp policy. So you want to get accurate payroll numbers so that they don't have a huge audit at the end of the year and having to pay more. In addition, you want to look at their vendors that service them and making sure those 1099s are actually true independent contractors that can stand on their own 2 feet, that have their own insurance, have their own business license, and own insurance, and obviously if they have employees for workers' comp. That is how the work comp carriers are going to determine whether they are part of the payroll or not part of the payroll. You could have 1099s that don't qualify, and that will end up being added to as part of the payroll and that gets hit usually at audit time and can cause additional premium to be due. So it's important to have that discussion at the beginning so that you get it properly set up. Last, what are your best practices for classifying job duties? Well, you don't have to be an expert with class codes. However, you do need to have, and our underwriters can definitely help you with that aspect of it if you have questions. But you do need to know whether the employees that are classified in those classifications are actually qualified for that classification. Of course, we're always trying to make sure that if we can move someone into a lower rated class, that's certainly going to save the insured some money. But it can work against you if they don't really qualify for that lower rated classification, then they're going to pay additional premium at the time of the audit. So it's important to get the job duties classified correctly for each employee. And then the very last thing is loss history. So on your smaller accounts, we can quote subject to loss history as long as you're telling us there's no losses. And if there are losses, obviously we're going to need to ask a few questions on that. It's probably more likely that you would want to get the loss history if you're aware that they've had losses. But really, when it gets to your larger size, let's just say, maybe 10,000 and above in premium, it's to your advantage to get that loss history currently dated within 90 days and use that as a tool, because that's a great way of submitting to a carrier and getting credits applied for clean loss history, and they can actually substantiate it because they've got the loss history in their hands. So that sort of gives you an idea. So smaller accounts, we can quote subject to, but you will have to get it at the time of binding. And larger ones, I recommend that you go get that loss history up front so that we can competitively price based on that loss history. So if you'd like to get a workers' comp submission from us, you can submit your applications to submissions at CIDinsurance.com. Thanks for joining me.